Hey there, Improv Tipsters, Paul Vaillancourt here. I'm back with another What Were You Thinking video. And my guest today, my partner in crime, if you will, is the lovely and talented Chris Tallman. You may remember him from this ding ding tip he did not too long ago, or you may remember him from the Thundermans or Reno 911 or a million other things that he's done. His bio is in this ding ding this video, so I won't belabor that, but other than to say that we had a real fun time doing this scene. In fact, we did, I'll be honest and say we did two scenes. The first scene did not record sound, so that was on me. I'm not sure how that happened exactly. But the second scene did record sound. Totally different scene. Totally fun in a totally different way. But I really enjoyed breaking it down with Chris because we know each other personally. Our kids grew up together and we know each other as improvisers, yes, but also as dads. And I think a lot of times we end up doing dad talk. So it's nice to sort of put that aside for a moment and really get deep into improv that we love so much. And I thought it was really interesting to hear his take on the scene. I mean, it was a super fun scene. He made some really big choices, and we really went for it, both of us, and it was really fun to do and then fun to talk about afterwards. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. So please, without any further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy me and Chris Tallman. Okay, now we're going to do a scene, and then we'll watch it back and talk about what we were thinking.
What are we thinking?
Why are we doing this? I could have been an accountant.
Oh boy.
Our word for inspiration is star. Star.
Such a beautiful night.
Amanda, I'm so glad you came out here with me.
I didn't think anyone would join me at a cotillion.
Oh, that's where you're wrong. I had to push back all the other boys who want to come out here and join you with this cotillion.
Oh, you're just saying that.
I'm not even just saying. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so fragile.
My goodness. You're just like a little flower, aren't you? Look at you, all arrayed in your finery.
Do you like it with all the bees that I sewed onto my dress?
I love the bees. I love them. That's your signature color, black and yellow, ain't it?
Two colors, technically.
Yeah. Well,
you don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm too rough. Amanda, maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I'm too rough for the delicate likes of you.
No. Listen. I think you're the best stable boy Papa ever hired. The fact that you came to cotillion means you're different than all the rest.
That's right, I broke in. They didn't invite me.
What?
I'm here without an invitation.
I should sound the alarm.
You should.
But I can't.
You won't.
My hand wants to, but my heart's telling my hand to go to bed.
That's right. If you're following me out here, out on the balcony, alone, 50 feet away from 100 people,
what do you think he'd do?
he'd fly into a rage.
Yeah.
He'd fire me, of course, for sure, one.
I don't
and then
know.
B, I am the best stable. Well, maybe he wouldn't fire me.
Should we ask him?
No!
Oh, no!
We have to keep this our secret.
Our secret love.
That's right. Sorry, it's my rough physique.
I think I should probably go back to my chamber. Can you turn on the oxygen?
Sure. I'll follow you.
At a distance, though.
Yes. And I won't enter your chamber. I'll go out onto the lawn and I'll look up at you.
But I want you in the chamber.
All right.
Ah!
Perfect. Okay, now we're going to watch the scene back and say, what were we thinking?
What were we thinking?
Thank you so much for doing this again. It's been really fun. I've known you for so long.
I know.
This is the first time I've had you. And
I'm very excited.
I'm very excited too. So as it's rolling up here, so the suggestion was star. Tell me this a little bit here before we get started. Really, when you hear this suggestion, this was something I've been asking everyone lately. What is your first sort of impulse on the suggestion?
I try and think. I just let star hit me, and I kind of let that either. It was like sometimes it's setting. In this one, I immediately pictured us like star. My brain went to like romance, starry night.
Oh, great.
Sometimes it creates a character, but in this moment, I was just like, it's beautiful, it's romantic, and
Great. So in this case, the suggestion suggested to you a mood.
yeah, a mood,
Great.
a feeling. I didn't know. I mean, you never know exactly what kind of scene, but that's where that was the launch point for me.
Great,
You?
that was great. A lot of times I'll think of a from the suggestion, I'll think of a location, like where are we? Because I feel like that's super useful.
Oh yeah.
And if I don't get to it soon, I feel like I don't get to it at all.
That's the thing. Yeah. If you, I feel like if I hold off on the basics, all of a sudden you're in 3 minutes in.
Yeah, and you're like, where are we again? Right? But you made such a great like right out of the gate. Well, we'll see it right here. Okay, now we're going to do a scene, and then we'll watch it back and talk about what we were thinking.
Customer life choices.
What are we
the videos.
Start. A couple of guys wearing black.
I could have been an accountant.
Oh boy.
Our word for inspiration is star. Star. Great. So right out of the gate, you have this really great, sort of moment of like this great physicality. So I'm reading so much off of that. Like right away, I thought you were a girl, and right away, I thought there was like this sort of like ingenue sort of vibe. It's so much. It's so great. Like I think when people make that big strong choice, physically or tone wise, right out of the gate, it's surprising like how much you can get off of that without you saying just like one thing. You know?
Yeah, I feel like because it was. I feel like the only way to convey that romance thing is like if you. My instinct is if I come at you romantically, that's almost too aggressive.
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to be kind of playing catch at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I thought my thing is okay. So I need to just really embody. Like you're saying, and so like in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm wearing like a silky dress, and I'm just trying to get that in my body, and you picked up on it, which is awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was really fun. That was such a great. So I knew then. I said, well, if she's the ingenue, then I must be the romantic lead, and you seem sort of young. So then I was sort of like young and kind of like innocent in my own way, sort of like rougher but innocent. You know?
Yeah.
That's sort of where I was coming from.
That's great. Such a beautiful night.
Amanda, I'm so glad you came out here with me.
I didn't think anyone would join me. And you go for the southern right away, somewhere like, oh, okay, that's where we are. I know.
Right, because you said cotillion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so as soon as you say cotillion, I definitely think southern for sure. And I don't know, it's just sometimes, it's like one of my 4 good accents. So, and you said...
What are the other 3? Popeye, funny animal,
exactly.
Crazy Cockney.
Crazy Cockney, exactly. He knows my work so well. So I go southern, and you say, oh, I didn't think anyone would join me. And I'm like, no, I would. So then I just try to ramp that idea up. Not only me, but the other 50 guys I had to push back.
Which I like because then to me, like, especially, with these scenes, it's always about why is today special.
Yeah, sure.
So all of a sudden you're like, that's why today's special, is you fought all the other dudes off. You made it.
Yeah, that's a really great thing. I've said that before in some of these videos of like, sometimes what makes a scene happen is the answer to that question. Why is today special? Why are we seeing this scene versus any of the other million scenes in these people's lives?
Exactly.
And I think you're right, 100%. So this is the scene, turns out, where we declare our love, or we sort of announce that thing. Great, and I love that you're sort of like, so great.
I had to push back all the other voices.
Right, so this, sorry, I wanted to sort of stop again really quick, but this little thing of this little fragile bit, I really love because it's sort of like, it's a little gift that you give yourself, but you also sort of give me. You know what I'm saying? Because like once you say the yin, then I'm the yang. You know what I'm saying? If you're fragile, then I'm like sort of roughly hewn, sort of.
Exactly,
You know?
yeah, and to me, the reason something like that works is because it's been so good bing 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 back and forth, so that way I know that, because like normally I feel like I try and give my partner gifts more, but because it's bouncing like that, I'm like, oh, if I do this about me, he's going to bounce right off of it.
And so let me ask you this, where did that idea come from? That idea like, oh, I'm so fragile.
Again, the night, the sky, and I'm just trying to think of like strong dynamics. I feel like, especially with improv scenes, like sometimes you can be too polite because you're
100%. There's an improv tip about that. I'll link it in the end here.
Up here.
I'll link it up here. Ding ding.
There.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like you have to make a choice. Like, okay, if it's going to be this, and I'm already kind of breathy in the way I'm speaking, so I'm just trying to heighten all of that. I'm just trying to be like just delicate and fragile and like this shadow that you could knock over.
Yes, and I love how that heightens as the scene goes. We'll see more of that. I think that's really great, and I love that sort of just that little moment, that little touch of you like touching my chest. I think, and especially in a scene of romance, a lot of times improvisers sort of struggle with that, like that sort of connection, that touch. Like we've known each other for a long time, so we're sort of familiar. But that just that little touch, that little thing means, I think, so much, especially in this sort of like steady kind of environment, this sort of like cotillion-y sort of like, they would never do that. This is so outrageous. That touch is like an embrace.
Exactly.
It was really fun. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so fragile. You're just like a little flat arch. Look at you, all arrayed in your finery.
You like it with all the bees that I sewed onto my dress?
I love the bees. I love it. That's your signature color, black.
Right. So we come back to this. I love the bees thing, which is great. That's actually another improv tip that I'll link about the internal painting gift. I think that's coming up. And
bees. You gotta have bees in your scene.
That's part of it. But I really love that little detail because that really says something about you, right? And I think it's like, and sometimes I give it to my partner, sometimes I give it to myself. But that painting gift internal to the scene that's not only like painting but also telltale about the person, which I rather love. Like you are literally this delicate flower, awash in bees, and all of this stuff. Yeah, I think that's what's so interesting about an improv scene that goes well is that you sort of like you go back and like, oh, all these sort of happy actions. My brain was working in these ways I didn't even really suspect or whatever. But I think that's really interesting, and it also says that you're just like a little bit of a character.
Yeah, the impulse was just like I need to have and I felt like because everything had been so of us, like I was like we're such in this kind of like quiet thing. I was like I want to throw something in. I don't know if it's gonna be anything. I was like I want to throw something that's weird, that's not of this piece.
Yeah.
Just like to create a ripple in a pond, like because I feel like because now I want to start giving you things. You know what I mean? And so I was like, so if I'm covered in bees, you're either gonna like that or be like, what the fuck?
Right. It's definitely a provocative gift in some way.
Yeah.
Right. So do you feel like that you do that sometimes? That the scene's like chugging, you like want to goose it up, so you sort of make that big choice to goose up the scene a little bit.
Depends. Like I don't want to ever go so far as to steer it because that's not
right for sure. And it's also the thing I love about it. Sorry to interrupt you, but the thing I really love about it is this big bold choice, but it's like within the path of this scene. So I don't feel like it's like, oh, by the way, I'm bionic or whatever. It's not a bold choice that derails the scene. It's a bold choice in sort of the frame of the scene, but it like pushes it and sort of just ups the energy of the scene a little bit. Right?
Yeah, and I feel like it also made my character a little more specific as opposed to just wave. It's like, oh, she's so like for some reason this girl either loves bees or she thought like there's just something specific and weird about it.
Right, and I think that's really interesting because I think sort of thinking forward in a little bit deeper into the piece, like if we see her again, maybe she's out tending bees, which is crazy because she's so delicate or whatever. Yeah. But I think it's interesting.
She's going to die by the end of the show. She's going to die.
She's going to die.
Two colors, technically.
Yeah,
you
don't
know.
Sorry. I'm too rough. Maybe that should be. Maybe I'm too
all that, like, because it's like you're playing like the rough guy, but you still have the delicate part of you, which I love. Is like with the hand and the turn. I'm like, oh, it's all of that genre,
right? And like you've been sort of drawing me along, like sort of kind of fishing for compliments for me in a way. I'm like, I'm gonna pull the rope back the other way a little bit. I turn away. Yeah, but I'm like turning back even before you kind of say your next line.
If you notice the blocking of it, up until that point, I've always been kind of like 3/4 to you and you're straight on to me. So you do that turn and then all of a sudden I grab my walker and I start coming and like you pulled me to you, which I was like, oh yeah, because we're just fucking standing still this whole time. It was great.
It's great. It's like a little, I love a little sort of, a little motion in the scene, and with the location is really simple. I really see it. I see like the banister and I can hear the music in the background. I get all that for sure. But I love just like a little motion between us, and also this is like I think really like Spolin 101, just sort of like just this kind of like energy of like pulling and pushing between the two of us. And so I did that consciously to draw you in, to draw you.
It was great.
To make you do more, your turn to seduce me a little bit.
Yeah, and because you did that, you made me move, which then made me go, how does she move? And I was like, well, she can't walk.
Great. Yeah.
So that's why I grabbed the little walker.
The walker thing is great, because at first I was like, oh, that's just a railing of the but now it's like a walker. I'm like, oh my God, it's so great, because it just like it adds to your character. It's another little thing. You didn't even say it or paint it or whatever, but in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, that walker's hilarious.
rough for those delicate locks of you.
No.
You can see me smiling.
Listen. I think you're the best stable boy Papa ever hired. The fact that you came to Quintillion means you're different.
Great, that was such a great gift. You're the best boot black Papa ever. That's what you said, boot black, right?
I don't remember.
Or stable hand or something.
Something stable boy.
Stable boy, right. Yeah, and then that's such a great gift to me, because it's like we're sort of like, we're sort of in this thing, the dynamic is set, okay, I understand what's happening, but I think at that point, the details really help. They really matter, they fill in the scene, and then that definitely 1,000,000% leads to my next line. I'm not even supposed to be here. I broke in. That comes directly from what you said.
I love
that informs me. Because at first I think, oh, I've got a tie and this whole thing, but then when you say that, then I feel like maybe I've just got like a rough shirt and like a, whatever. But now I'm sort of feeling, I'm settling deeper into my character. And the thing I love about it is it all matches what we've done so far. Yeah. I'm rough and you're delicate.
I feel like at that point then, in my head, I'd start like locking in on like, do you ever do like the name of the scene? Do you ever think about stuff
Sure,
like that?
I do that a lot of times in retrospect.
Yes.
I can, like, especially when I'm coaching, I'll say like, that scene is like, dad shows he loves his son with a dog or something like that, you know?
Right. Yeah, so for me at that point, as soon as you say that I'm not even supposed to be here, for me then all of a sudden I locked in on forbidden love, and I was like, oh, so that is, as we get to in a second, like that would that's what it comes to come to the chamber, whatever the fuck the chamber is.
Right.
But just like the idea of like, oh, this is there's something like now I know where we're headed, which I really like.
That's great, and I love that it's forbidden because that's a little bit of extra tension in the scene. Yeah. And tension's good for everybody.
That's right, I broke in. They didn't invite me.
What?
I'm here without an invitation.
I should sound me.
That's why I go to the alarm.
Yeah, I love the alarm thing because it's so like it's again it's tension, like, oh, there's an alarm, this is an alarm worthy situation. So, and I think this is really interesting because it's like a lot of times in scenes you want the tension of the scene to ramp up or to escalate a little bit, and people think that means yelling.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't. It's just like the stakes are going up now.
Yeah.
Because it's like we're a man and a woman alone and unescorted, and then we're sort of like, oh, you're the daughter of the boss and I'm the employee, and now it's like, oh my gosh, I broke into this, and this sort of like tension is like drawing out in the scene, and we're not yelling. It's the love is escalating, the tension's escalating, but it's like I think it's really good, and also I think it's that moment where I get to say, and we're sort of finding our way to it of like, you should call the alarm. But you're not going to.
Yeah, right? which to me, like, that's improv, which is like, the reality is you're going to hit the alarm, but because we're doing a scene, you can't.
Right.
Which I was like, yeah.
And I love that it comes back to your hand, your delicate hand. I thought was really fun.
My hand wants to, but my heart's telling my hand to go to bed.
That's right. If you're following me out here, out on the balcony, alone, 50 feet away from 100 people,
What do you think you do?
he'd fly into a rage.
Yeah.
He'd fire me, of course, for sure, one. And then B, I am the best stable. Well, maybe he will fire me.
Should we ask him?
No!
Oh, no!
We have to keep this our secret.
Our secret love.
That's right.
Great. Now I feel like the points are set, and it's just like ding, ding, ding.
Yeah,
ding,
now we're just playing.
Just crushing through those two things of like the tension, like forbidden love versus your delicate versus I'm rough, and we're just like hitting those bases like again and again and again. It's like very simple. At this point, it's like it's really simple because we set those pieces earlier, and now it's like really.
And then you calling out like the stuff with the dad, I'm just like, oh, this is great because now we have the looming. Now we know why it's forbidden. There's this guy that's gonna. As soon as you said like what's he gonna do to you, I was like, oh boy, he's probably gonna like beat you with the belt. I was just like,
right, for sure.
This is bad news for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is another thing. This happened in another what were you thinking with Brian O'Connell? We talked about someone off stage, but I think it's sort of the same kind where it's like we're not throwing to that person, we're not bleeding energy to that person. It just sort of it's almost like another element of the tension between us.
Yeah, the threat.
And we're not like as an audience, we're not thinking like, where's that guy? Or let's go see that guy. It's just like, oh shit, is this even worse than we thought?
Yeah, and I like it in the sense of like if we're doing a Herald, somewhere down the road, if anybody is kind of big and mean and blustery, it's going to be so easy for someone to go dad, even if it's not with these characters. Right, we now know there's a threat character. Right. Which I like sort of the breadcrumbs for
sure. It's like what I always say is like it's like a string. It's like an untied string. Just like you're throwing out these strings and maybe you tie up some loose ends, maybe you don't. But I think it's always better to leave the piece or whatever with a few untied strings rather than everything tied up. You have to untie it and tie it a different way or whatever. Yeah. You always want to sort of like what I call maybe expansive choices.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's you sort of introduced this thing about the dad, and now that's an expansive choice.
My rough physique.
I think I should probably go back to my chamber. Can you turn on the oxygen?
Sure. I'll follow you.
At a distance, though.
Yes. And I won't enter your chamber. I'll go out onto the lawn and I'll look up at you.
But I want you in the chamber.
Good. So that's like that fun little bit at the end. It's like it just goes over the top. Like now we know. And this is like I do another video called the thing about pornography, and it's like you sort of know the ending of the story.
Yes.
But it's not the ending of the story. It's the story that we're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't want to see like whatever, but we want to see sort of all the moments leading up to whatever.
Yeah, and I feel like because it ends like that, we don't know, like, did they make it? Did the dad get you? I feel like it can go a couple different ways.
Right.
And I feel like I wanted to try and get you into some kind of trouble at the end because I wanted it not to be tied up with the bow. I wanted it to be like, oh shit.
For sure.
This might be the last time we see her, and now you're on the land. I don't know. I don't know what's coming.
For sure.
next.
I think I like it because it sort of comes back to that idea of the dad and the tension and sort of like pulling on the rubber band and then kind of letting it snap. And then I think sort of, for me, I think what would be fun to have happen is some stuff to happen off stage.
Yes.
And then we sort of come back in the wash of what's happened. But I love that we sort of like snap that rubber band and we leave kind of on a cliffhanger of like, what happens? But I also kind of really think what's interesting about your character is that I think she likes that. I think she likes the tension. She likes, and if she saw me beat up in like in a cast or whatever, she'd be like, I love it. But,
You got that because of me.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's something sort of twisted about her. So she might die or I might die.
Yeah, by the end. Yeah,
That was really fun, man. That's
Thank you.
Such a fun scene. It's an interesting specific of characters. I think that's really it. Let me ask you about this, just sort of imparting. So, do you feel like you really play like deep into characters like that? Is that sort of in your style? You think?
Yeah, I feel like my thought is always trying, without being like, because I feel like as scenes go, this was sort of a more quieter scene. Like I like to be there as opposed, because I can have really big crazy energy, but that can blow things out.
Sure.
So I like to think of that type of energy, but poured into the focus of a character or the physicality or the location.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
stepping on the gas, like a cinder block on the gas pedal of a car. So it's going as hard as it can, but maybe in terms of character development as opposed to crazy energy.
So I think that's a really interesting point, because that sort of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier of like the tension of the scene ramping up and up and up, but it doesn't have to be yelling. And you're pouring all your energy into that thing, but you're sort of steering it in a way that's a little more subtle, but you're sort of like leaning into that thing hard.
Well, because you had said, I'm not supposed to be, like there's all these things that I was like, oh, your character is walking a tightrope. So my job, even though we're in love and we're on the same page, my job is as an improviser is to shake that fucking tightrope as much as I can. You know what I mean? To make you give you hurdles and things.
Yeah. I have one other question for you that's sort of separate from the scene. But when you started in improv, where did you start?
I started in Madison, Wisconsin doing comedy sports.
So in short form.
Yeah, short form, which we learned all these things, but it really was much more about that, 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really get into long form until we did some long form in New York. I moved to LA in '99, and that's when I started doing IO and UCB, and I feel like that's when I started getting more of like the training of the breathing. And
do you feel like, and this is something I've been thinking a lot about, and I talked about this with Lauren Pritchard, I'll link her
Hi, Lauren.
video as well. Cross time and space, and also Chris Alvarado too, is I start off in short form as well.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like, to me, that was like a really big difference. Like when I sort of interact with other players who had, when I was starting off especially, I had started off in long form and I started off in short form and then moved to long form and they had just started long form. I felt like there's something extra, like a little bit of like oomph that I brought to the
think
endeavor.
So. Well, because it gives you that, because it's in short form and you only have like 3 or 4 minutes to do a scene, you have your motors running. And so I feel like it helped me organically get to the things of why is today special. Like this scene has to be about something as opposed to just people existing in space.
Right.
Which I think when we are maybe too comfortable, either we're too comfortable or scared, I feel like they kind of create similar types of scenes.
Oh, interesting.
Which is like, oh, well, here we are. Beat. More orange, but there's nothing happening.
Right. So do you feel like, I sort of feel like starting from short form, the thing that I really brought with me to long form was a really innate sense of attack on the scene.
Yes.
Just really get after it.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
You gotta go. Yeah, every once in a while, I have seen scenes where there's a lot of breath at the beginning and somebody says a perfect crystallization line, and it's great.
For sure.
more often than not, that patience isn't patience. That's not knowing.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
playing tentative a little bit?
I think so. I think so. And so I try and, you know, because you don't know what the scene's going to be, so I just try and be like, okay, I'm not going to be tentative. It can be quiet, but I'm going to be like,
right.
on the balls of my feet.
I'm going to go all the way back to the very beginning of the scene, because I think that in the beginning you're super quiet,
Yes.
but you just like settle into this physicality right before you even speak. Just like your first breath settles you into this physicality that, as I said, communicated so much to me and really set the tone of the scene.
Great. Well, we did it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming out and doing this. I will link Chris's improv tip as well. And thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey friends, thanks for checking out the video, and if you want to hear a little bit more, check out one of these 2 quality videos. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and follow us on social media. All the links are in the description down below, and let me know what you would like to see an improv tip about. Thanks for watching.